The Guardian's Awakening. The containment facility on Nexar Prime housed the military's darkest secrets, but none more fearsome than Specimen K-Than. Towering 3 stories high, with crystalline scales that seemed to absorb light itself, the beast weapon represented the pinnacle of Nexari bioengineering. For 2 centuries, it had slumbered in its quantum stasis field, a living weapon waiting to be unleashed. Commander Leia Ven stood before the massive observation window, her silver uniform reflecting the soft blue glow of the stasis field. In 20 years of overseeing the facility, she had never seen K-Than so much as twitch. Yet today, something was different. The beast's massive chest rose and fell with increasing frequency, its iridescent scales shifting like oil on water. "Report," she demanded, her 4-fingered hand tightening on the railing. Chief Scientist Ixel adjusted his atmospheric mask, his spotted skin pale with concern. "The readings are unprecedented, Commander. Brain activity is spiking across all neural clusters. It's as if something is calling to it." The facility's alarms chose that moment to spring to life, bathing the observation deck in crimson light. Security forces poured into the chamber, their plasma rifles charged and ready. But it wasn't K-Than that had triggered the perimeter breach. "Commander," a security officer burst through the doors. "We've detected an unauthorized vessel. It crashed through the outer defense grid and went down in Section 7. Ven's silver eyes narrowed. Impossible. Nothing could penetrate. The beast stirred. K-Than's massive head, crowned with swept-back horns that could impale a transport ship, lifted slowly. Its eyes, each the size of a hover car, opened to reveal swirling galaxies of deep purple. The stasis field crackled and sparked. "Full containment protocols." Ven barked. "I want every available power source diverted to the stasis generators. Now." But even as the order left her lips, she knew it was too late. K-Than was awakening, and nothing in their arsenal could stop it. The beast's consciousness, carefully suppressed for centuries, was surging back to life. In Section 7, through corridors of twisted metal and emergency force fields, a different drama was unfolding. The crashed vessel was unlike anything in Nexari records. Primitive by their standards, but somehow it had slipped through their most advanced defenses. Security teams approached with weapons drawn, expecting to find hostile forces. Instead, they found a child. She couldn't have been more than 6 Earth years old, with dark curly hair and brown skin, wearing strange clothes marked with the symbol of a human aid organization. She was unconscious but alive, trapped in the wreckage of what appeared to be an escape pod. The security team's commander, Lieutenant Kex, reached for his communicator. "Command, we have a situation. The intruder is a human juvenile. Female. Injured but stable." Back in the containment chamber, K-Than's movement became more purposeful. The beast's massive claws, each longer than a Nexari warrior was tall, flexed against the stasis field. The barrier, designed to hold the most powerful weapon in the Empire, began to crack like thin ice. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel," Ven ordered, her voice steady despite the growing chaos. "Prepare the backup containment protocols." But before anyone could move, K-Than's consciousness brushed against theirs. The telepathic touch was unlike anything they had experienced in their trials and tests with the beast. It wasn't filled with the usual rage and bloodlust. Instead, it carried something entirely different: concern. The beast's massive head turned, with impossible precision, toward Section 7, toward the child. "Commander," Ixel whispered, his scientific detachment crumbling as he stared at his readings. The neural patterns, they're synchronizing with something, or someone. The stasis field shattered. Kethan rose to its full height, crystalline scales cascading light across the chamber like a kaleidoscope. But instead of the rampage they had all feared, the beast stood perfectly still, its cosmic eyes fixed in the direction of the crash site. A low rumble filled the chamber, not of aggression, but of something far more primal: protection. Lock down all corridors between here and Section 7. Venn ordered, her mind racing through scenarios, each worse than the last. Whatever connection is forming, we need to. She never finished the sentence. Kethan moved with impossible speed for something of its size, its massive form somehow flowing through spaces that should have been too small to contain it. The beast that had been their ultimate weapon, their proof of military superiority, was now moving with single-minded purpose toward an injured human child. The facility's walls groaned and buckled. Emergency barriers snapped like twigs. And in the chaos, Commander Venn realized they had never truly understood what they had created. Kethan wasn't just a weapon. It was something far more complex, and now it had found something that spoke to whatever remained of its original nature. As the beast carved its way through the facility, the child in Section 7 began to stir. And in that moment, two species separated by vast gulfs of evolution, technology, and war were about to forge a connection that would shake the foundations of the Nexari Empire itself. The weapon of mass destruction was about to become something else entirely, a guardian. Bombs of the impossible. The medical bay of Nexar Prime's containment facility had never been designed to handle a human patient, let alone one under the vigilant watch of a colossal beast weapon. Kethan's massive form filled the adjacent chamber, specially reinforced to bear its weight, while its serpentine neck curved through the connecting archway. Those cosmic eyes remained fixed on the small figure lying on the examination table. Dr. Mirasen had treated countless species in her career, but her hands trembled slightly as she passed the medical scanner over the child's unconscious form. Not from the proximity of Kethan, though that was terrifying enough, but from the sheer impossibility of what her instruments were telling her. The synchronization is unlike anything we've ever seen, she reported to Commander Venn, who stood rigid by the doorway. The child's neural patterns are perfectly aligned with Kethan's. It's as if. As if what, Doctor? As if they were meant to find each other. The child, whom they had identified as Sarah Petal from the aid organization's records, stirred slightly. Immediately, Kethan's massive head moved closer, crystalline scales shifting colors in response to some unseen stimulus. The movement sent several medical assistants scrambling backward, but Dr. Sen held her ground. Commander, she continued, these readings suggest the connection isn't just telepathic, it's physiological. Their nervous systems are somehow resonating on a quantum level. Commander Venn's silver eyes narrowed. Impossible. Kethan was engineered to be the perfect weapon. Any capability for connection was deliberately stripped from its genetic code. Then, perhaps, Dr. Sen suggested carefully, we never fully understood what we were engineering. Sarah's eyes fluttered open. Deep brown met swirling purple, and the entire room held its breath. The child showed no fear, only recognition, as if greeting an old friend. She reached out one small hand toward Kethan's massive snout. Wait. Venn started forward, but Dr. Sen caught her arm. Look, the doctor whispered. Kethan, the destroyer of worlds, the terror weapon of the Nexari Empire, was gently nuzzling the child's hand. The beast's scales, capable of deflecting capital ship weapons, softened their crystalline edges wherever they made contact with Sarah's skin. A sound filled the chamber, a deep, resonant purr that made the medical instruments vibrate in sympathy. Sarah giggled. "Hello," she said simply, as if greeting a large, unusual pet. "I knew you were waiting for me." The words sent a chill through the assembled Nexari. Kethan's behavioral conditioning should have made it impossible for the beast to respond to any being except its military handlers. Yet here it was, its entire massive form oriented around this small human child with an obvious protective intent. "Sarah," Dr. Sen said gently, approaching the bed. "Can you tell us how you got here?" The child's face clouded. "The bad men came to the station. They hurt everyone. I hid in the pod like Mama told me to. And then," she looked at Kethan, "I heard singing. In my head. It showed me the way." Commander Ven's communicator chirped urgently. "Commander, we've decoded the pod's flight recorder. The aid station was attacked by Krevlak raiders. No other survivors." Sarah's lower lip trembled, but before tears could fall, Kethan moved. The beast's massive form shifted, creating a protective dome around the medical bed. The message was clear. Nothing would harm this child again. "Fascinating," murmured Chief Scientist Ixo, who had been quietly monitoring his instruments in the corner. "The beast's genetic locks are being completely rewritten. The weapon protocols are being overridden by something far more ancient, something buried in its base genetic code." "Explain," Ven demanded. "Than's species wasn't originally a weapon, Commander. They were guardians, protectors of other sentient species. We didn't create this capability. We merely buried it beneath layers of military conditioning, and somehow this child has awakened it." The implications were staggering. Generations of Nexari military doctrine had been built around the belief that their beast weapons were purely artificial creations. If they were instead modified versions of an ancient guardian species. A sharp alarm cut through the tension. Sarah sat up straighter, her small face suddenly serious. "They're coming," she said. Kethan's head snapped toward the facility's outer walls, a low growl building in its massive chest. The beast's scales shifted from their peaceful iridescence to a deeper, combat-ready crimson. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace reported a security officer over the facility's comm system. Krevlak signatures. They followed the pod's trail. Commander Ven straightened her uniform. "Deploy our defensive fleet. No one touches this facility." But Sarah was shaking her head. "Not enough," she said, with a child's simple certainty. "They brought their big ships. The scary ones." As if in confirmation, the facility's walls trembled with the first distant impacts. Kethan's head rose, its cosmic eyes blazing with renewed purpose. The beast's thoughts brushed against their minds again, but this time the message was clear. What had once been the Empire's ultimate weapon would now be its ultimate guardian. And nothing in the galaxy would separate it from its chosen charge. "Commander," Dr. Sen said quietly, "I hope you're ready to completely reassess everything we thought we knew about Kethan. Because I don't think we're containing a weapon anymore." "No," Ven agreed, watching as Sarah fearlessly patted Kethan's massive snout. "We're hosting a reunion that was centuries in the making. And the real question is, what happens next?" The facility shook again, harder this time. Kethan's scales rippled with combat readiness, but the beast maintained its protective posture around Sarah. The child showed no fear, only complete trust in her massive guardian. The weapon of the Empire had chosen a new purpose, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened a child protected by the most powerful guardian species ever known. Through a child's eyes. The Krevlak assault on Nexar Prime's containment facility lasted exactly 6 minutes. Not because the raiders retreated, but because that was all the time Kithan needed to demonstrate why threatening its human charge was the last mistake they would ever make. Sarah watched from the safety of the reinforced medical bay as her guardian moved with impossible grace through the facility's defense grid. Than's crystalline scales now pulsed with patterns of light that seemed to bend weapons fire around its massive form, protecting not just itself, but every structure between the raiders and the child. Remarkable, Chief Scientist Exol muttered, his instruments struggling to keep up with the readings. The beast's capabilities have evolved beyond anything in our records. Sarah, can you tell what Kithan is thinking? The little girl nodded, her legs swinging off the edge of the medical bed. Kithan is happy to protect. It's what they were always supposed to do, before the sad times. Commander Venn, who hadn't left the medical bay since the attack began, stepped forward. The sad times. When they were changed. When they were made to hurt instead of help. Sarah's face scrunched in concentration. Than shows me pictures sometimes, of the before time. They were so beautiful then, all of them, watching over the young ones of many worlds. Through the observation windows, they watched as Kithan dispatched the last Krevlak ship with almost contemptuous ease. The beast's natural defensive abilities, combined with centuries of military enhancement, made it unstoppable. But now that power was tempered with precision. There were no unnecessary casualties, no collateral damage. Dr. Sen's medical scanners beeped urgently. Commander, the neural synchronization is deepening. Sarah isn't just communicating with Kithan. They're sharing memories. The genetic memories we could never access, Ixol realized. The beast weapon's original programming, locked away beneath our military conditioning. This child is the key to understanding their entire species. Sarah slid off the bed, padding over to the window. Kithan's massive head immediately turned toward her, those cosmic eyes softening. They're not supposed to be weapons, she said firmly, with the simple conviction of a child stating an obvious truth. They're supposed to be friends. The facility's command staff watched in amazement as Kithan delicately maneuvered back through the defense grid, its enormous form somehow avoiding even minor damage to the structures around it. The beast that had once leveled cities with casual indifference now moved with the careful precision of a parent mindful of their surroundings. "Show them," Sarah said suddenly, placing her small hand against the reinforced window. "Show them what you showed me." Kithan's eyes began to glow brighter, and suddenly every mind in the medical bay was filled with visions of the past. They saw vast crystalline beings soaring through ancient skies, their scales refracting starlight as they watched over the first steps of countless young civilizations. They were guardians, shepherds, protectors, until the Nexari Empire's ancestors found them and saw the potential for weapons of war. The visions shifted, showing centuries of genetic manipulation, of proud guardians being twisted into instruments of destruction. But through it all, deep in their core programming, the original purpose remained dormant, waiting for the right catalyst to reawaken it. The Nexari didn't create the beast weapons. Commander Venn whispered, her military bearing shaken by the revelation. We enslaved them, corrupted them. And now they're remembering, Dr. Sen added, watching as Sarah fearlessly waved at Kithan through the window. Thanks to a child who can see past what they became to what they truly are. A priority alert flashed across the facility's communication systems. High Command was demanding answers about the facility's status, about Kithan's behavior, about the human child who had somehow compromised centuries of military conditioning. They're afraid, Sarah said, not turning from the window. Kethan says they're afraid because they think they're losing a weapon. But they're not losing anything. They're getting back something better. Commander Venn straightened her uniform, decision crystallizing in her silver eyes. Ixal, prepare a full report on the genetic memories Sarah and Kethan have revealed. Dr. Sen, I want a complete analysis of their neural bond. If one human child can awaken a beast weapon's original programming, then the others might be awakened too, Ixal finished. The entire military doctrine of the Empire would have to change. Good, Sarah said simply, still watching Kethan. No more weapons, just guardians again. The beast rumbled in agreement, its scales shifting through colors that none of them had ever seen before. Patterns that spoke of peace, of protection, of a purpose restored. Through the child's eyes, they were beginning to understand what Kethan truly was, and what all its kind could be again. But not everyone would welcome this change. Even now, orders were being transmitted, decisions made in distant command centers, by those who saw only the loss of their most powerful weapons. They couldn't understand what Sarah saw so clearly, that they were about to gain something far more valuable. Kethan's thoughts brushed against their minds again, and this time the message was crystal clear. The age of weapons was ending. The age of guardians was about to begin anew. And it all started with a child who could see past centuries of conditioning to the truth that lay beneath those crystalline scales. The real question was, how far would the Empire go to preserve their weapons? And what would happen when they realized that Kethan's transformation was just the beginning? Breaking chains. The order came at dawn. Extract the human child. Terminate the compromised specimen. Commander Venn read the transmission twice, her silver eyes reflecting the harsh glow of the emergency lights. Around her, the facility's command center hummed with nervous energy as staff officers watched their screens, tracking the approaching fleet of Nexari dreadnoughts. They don't understand, Dr. Sen whispered, looking at the medical readings that showed Sarah and Kethan's neural patterns dancing in perfect synchronization. Breaking their bond could kill them both. But High Command didn't care about bonds. They saw only a weapon slipping from their control, a carefully maintained military doctrine crumbling because of one small human child. Sarah knew they were coming. She stood in Kethan's chamber, her small hand resting on the beast's crystalline scales. "We have to go," she said simply, "before the angry ones arrive." Kethan's massive head lowered, those cosmic eyes swirling with determination. The beast that had once terrorized galaxies now moved with gentle precision, curling its enormous body around Sarah in a protective embrace. Commander Venn made her decision. "Initiate Protocol 0, she ordered, her voice carrying across the command center. Full facility shutdown. And someone appeared to have accidentally transmitted our complete research data on the Guardian species to every scientific institute in the sector." Dr. Sen smiled, already moving toward the medical bay. How unfortunate. Such a terrible breach of security. The facility's lights dimmed as power systems went dark. Security doors slid open as backup systems failed. And in the massive chamber that had been Kethan's prison for centuries, a child and her guardian prepared to change the course of history. Evolution of mercy. The final confrontation took place in the skies above Nexar Prime. Kethan, with Sarah secured safely within a cocoon of crystalline scales, faced down the Empire's entire home fleet. But they weren't alone. From across the sector they came. First one, then dozens, the other beast weapons, their conditioning cracking under the weight of awakened memories. They had felt Sarah's connection with Kethan, sensed the truth she had revealed, and remembered their original purpose. High Command watched in horror as their ultimate weapons transformed before their eyes. Crystalline scales shifted from war red to colors that hadn't been seen in millennia. The Guardians were awakening. Sarah stood on Cathan's massive head, her small figure silhouetted against the stars. Through their shared connection, she broadcast a message to every mind in the fleet. They were never meant to be weapons. They chose to be guardians, and now they choose again. The space around Nexar Prime filled with light as beast after beast shed their military conditioning, reverting to their true forms. They were no longer weapons to be wielded, but guardians who chose their own path. Commander Venn, watching from the facility's command center, saw the moment the Empire's military doctrine died. It happened not with violence, but with understanding. The beasts they had thought were their greatest weapons were actually their greatest teachers. In the years that followed, the story would be told across 1,000 worlds. How a child's ability to see past fear and conditioning had awakened an ancient species of guardians. How the Nexari Empire, faced with the truth of what they had done, chose to make amends. Sarah grew up among the Guardians, a bridge between species, helping to heal the wounds of centuries. Cathan remained her constant companion, proof that the universe's greatest weapons could transform into its greatest protectors. And on distant worlds, where young civilizations were taking their first steps into the stars, they would sometimes see crystalline forms soaring overhead, scales refracting starlight. The Guardians had returned to their original purpose, watching over the young ones of many worlds. All because one child had seen past the monster to find the Guardian within. The end.